Can you believe Machine Head is back only 3 episodes in?
I know! Look at my face!
Oh, roll the title card. This is After All. That's right, my friends. We're only 3 episodes into season 4 of Invincible, and my boy, the show stealer, the auto-tune crime boss star, is back. And every single time Mark gets roped into Titans and Machine Head's feuds, it only gets worse and worse every time. First, Mark almost died alongside many of the Guardians. Second time, Mark almost died due to a giant dragon and got manipulated by Titan again. And this time, well, you'll have to tune in to find out. But as usual, spoiler warning for Invincible Season 4, Episode 3. Please go watch the actual episode if you haven't already, and then come back and watch this video. I don't want to rob a single viewer of some quality time with the best character in the show. But I think that's enough delaying. We should jump right into this one. God, I hate when people say that. Let's jump into it, guys. Let's jump into it. But we should get straight into this one because we're back on Earth, and there's a lot happening on Earth. Episode 3 opens on a conversation between Machine Head and Titan. Machine Head warns Titan that Mr. Leo is still alive after getting, as Machine Head puts it,
45 caliber haircut.
He offers Titan to rejoin the Order since there's still an empty seat, and makes what might be one of the best descriptions I've ever heard. In his bathroom, Machine Head has this mosaic on his floor of some like ancient Roman stuff, but there's this one tile that's slightly out of place, and it drives him nuts. As an unofficially diagnosed OCD person, I agree. That would also drive me completely fucking nuts. Machine Head says that's what Titan is to him, his one piece that's just not like the others. But Titan refuses his offer, saying he'll take his chances after fighting like hell to get his own piece. We'll see how long that lasts, yeah? We cut over to the GDA where Donald and Cecil are discussing Mark's latest engagement with the Sequids and the drastic measures he took. Donald is actually defending Mark and says Cecil probably would have made the same call Mark did. Cecil doesn't disagree with Donald, but he's quick to point out that, unlike Mark, he isn't half Viltrumite. Cecil is more than in the right to be concerned, just like how when Immortal was unstable back in season 2. But Immortal isn't nearly as powerful as Mark, so the level of concern being all the way up here makes sense. And over in the chop shop, Sinclair is still hacking away at the Invincible Reanimen as that creepy lady assistant we saw last season walks in. And she calls Sinclair out hard.
When are you going to admit it's not the work keeping you awake?
At first, I couldn't tell what exactly she meant or what she was talking about, but after watching the episode, this short interaction carries a lot more weight upon rewatch. And the fun times just keep on rolling as the Guardians bicker about the Sequid situation. Rudy believes that Mark didn't have to kill Russ, that if he just waited a second or two longer, someone could have gotten a disruptor to him. But Bulletproof disagrees, saying that even he couldn't know if the energy dome would have held out long enough. And to my surprise, Amanda is our voice of reason today instead of Black Samson. She simply says that, you know, what's done is done, and that they never have to worry about the Sequids ever again. Could not agree more. Britt, on the other hand, is not happy with Rudy defying his orders. Rudy and the others have been back for 2 days, and I can already tell they're thinking about leaving again. First the crime boys are interfighting with each other, and now the Guardians are too. Considering everything that's happening in the world, all this division is only gonna make it worse. And speaking of things getting worse, while Rudy was in the shower, he feels a bit sick and like he's going to vomit. Yep, there was one hiding in Rudy too. Thank God Amanda was there. But wait a second. If Rudy, who was only possessed for a short time, had a Sequid egg or whatever planted inside of him, who's to say the other infected hosts don't also have Sequids growing in them? Like Eve, for example. Or maybe they put it in Rudy when they knocked him unconscious? I have no idea. It seems that Rudy's luck in surviving that Sequid made him do a total 180 on how he feels about Mark's recent actions. Now he thinks perhaps maybe Mark has it right. They're stopping these threats, but they always come back stronger and the fallout is always so much worse. Just look at Doc Seismic, for example. He went from messing up the Mount Rushmore. He went from messing up Mount Rushmore to abducting every hero on the planet and causing unbelievable seismic destruction. Maybe stopping them permanently before so many lives get destroyed is the way it has to be done sometimes. And speaking of Mark and his actions, he is really struggling to cope with what happened with Russ. The close-up shots of his face as the event replays in his mind over and over again really conveys the near, madness he's experiencing. But luckily, he's not alone. Mark tries to call Eve to talk, but she doesn't have her phone on hand. Her hands are quite full at the moment as she desperately tries to understand why her powers are failing. The first instance of her powers acting funny and turning into this weird pink sludge stuff was actually at the end of season 3. Remember that shot of Mark's mask as the segs ensued and all that pink fluid around it? Same stuff we're seeing now. It seems that after she reconstructed her entire body during the conquest fight, has had some sort of effect or alteration on her abilities. How and the exact reason why remains unknown, but what is known is that it is freaking Eve the fuck out. Just as Mark is feeling bad enough with Eve not picking up the phone, Donald comes knocking, telling him that Cecil would like to have a little chat. And judging by that look on Mark's face, he's not really in the mood. Remember back in episode 1 of the season when I pointed out the contrast between Mark and his mother's arcs this season? Well, that trend only continues this episode. As Mark is frustrated, angry, and on the verge of his last final breaking point, his mom and Paul continue talking about moving in together. Paul shows Debbie a house that she really likes, and Paul asks her to sleep on the idea of buying it together. You know, selling both their houses and all that to compensate. So Debbie does just that. She sleeps on it. I mean, after raising Mark and being in her current house for almost 20 years or even longer, it can be hard to move away from that and make such a big change. As someone who's moved a lot in his life, I didn't fully get that particular sentiment until now. I've lived in my current place for I don't know, almost or more than 8 years? Not nearly 20 or anything, but the idea of moving now feels very strange and not something I would do swiftly or without genuine thought. Not that I'm moving anytime soon. I'm broke as shit. But lucky Fiona, Titan's daughter, is anything but broke with how rich her dad is. They're strolling through the park on a brisk, autumn day? I don't know what season it is in universe. But as they're strolling along, Machine Head's warning comes to pass as Titan is attacked by one of Liu's loyalists, Magnatak. That's a name. He almost gets a couple lucky shots in at Titan's family before Titan beats the bastard to death with a tiny assist from Isotope, who is working for Titan still, or does he work for both Titan and Machine Head? Either way, Titan screams at Magnatak to never fuck with his family as he beats him senseless. Does that remind anyone of anything? Back at the GDA, Mark and Cecil are actually having something of a good and semi-productive talk. Cecil agrees with what Donald said earlier, that he would have done the exact same thing Mark did, and he thinks Mark did make the right call. But Cecil points out how it's not in Mark's nature to just do things like that. Mark expresses that maybe that should be in his nature, because if he killed Angstrom the first time, then so many people would still be alive. The amount of guilt Mark expresses when he says this,
I'll do anything to stop that from happening again,
is clearly immense, and it's clearly burdening him to an extreme degree. There is resolve in his voice, but it is overridden by unthinkable, nearly unbearable guilt and lack of self-forgiveness. Cecil acknowledges Mark's sentiment and states that's why Mark is a good person. But Cecil also wants to keep Mark that way, keep him as a good person. He does his best to explain that such choices come with emotional consequences, and to, at least at minimum, let Cecil chime in before Mark decides who lives and who dies. Cecil's basically trying to tell him like, hey man, let me take this burden so you don't have to. And sure, Cecil's intent and sentiment here is not all fully just humane empathy. He's trying to keep Mark from ending up like his father. But a part of him definitely doesn't want Mark to suffer. Not only is Cecil expressing concern for Mark, but he's also trying to convey to him that he doesn't want Mark to carry the kind of weight that he does. Of course, with their history and Mark's current aggressive tendencies, Mark says that he's not a kid anymore and he doesn't need handling. And then the episode does this sweet transition from Mark and Cecil over to the Reanimant Chop Shop, just as Cecil says,
"If I didn't try to handle you, I wouldn't be doing my job."
Donald urgently orders Sinclair and that creepy lady to cover up and vanish while Invincible is on the premises. And that creepy lady, whose name is Daphne, according to the X-ray, tells Sinclair that she knows what he's thinking and he should really cease thinking it. But he doesn't, and foolishly walks into Cecil's office as Mark is standing right there. Great idea, Sinclair. Do you have a death wish or something? All things considered though, and I'm not giving him a pass, I'm just giving credit where credit is due, because that's how I do. Sinclair does try and make some kind of good by apologizing to Mark and acknowledging all the horrible things he's done. Mark, of course, tells him to get lost and never come near him or his friends again, and to no one's surprise, even goes as far as accusing Cecil of planning that. you know, Sinclair walking in on them and all that. But for once, Cecil didn't plan that. The conversation between these two end on a rather uncomfortable but understandable note. Cecil admits he's not Sinclair's biggest fan either, but the Reanimen have saved a lot of lives, and Cecil points out again how this once terrible person is just trying to make good. And if we rewind to those interactions between Sinclair and Daphne, it's clear that Sinclair's rehabilitation has really made him realize how fucked up the shit he was doing was. And the fact that he went and tried to apologize to Invincible clearly shows that it's kind of eating him alive. But Mark is still upset because to him, it sounds like Sinclair gets a pass for torturing and killing people. While that really isn't the case, Mark is unable and unwilling to accept that because of how Sinclair's crimes personally affected Mark's best friend. Thankfully, Mark doesn't leave through the roof this time, but it's clear Sinclair will be one of those constants that Mark and Cecil will just never fully agree upon. At least things went better than they did last time, and it probably helps that Cecil didn't tell Mark about Conquest escaping, but we're gonna ignore that. After Mark gets home, he finds Eve freaking out about what's going on with her powers. The way she describes it as kind of like the atoms are sort of slipping through her hands, kind of like how water would slip through your hands, combined with Gillian Jacobs' performance, just totally sells the gravitas of this moment. We've heard Eve be angry, depressed, self-pitying, and sarcastic, but we've never heard her freak out and be this sad and close to tears this much. And considering the why of the freak out, this moment is just so well played out and so well scripted. They go inside and Mark tells Eve about Russ, and he also feels bad for talking about his problems when Eve is very clearly having problems of her own. But even in a crisis, Eve reminds him that they can be there for each other and not just one of them for the other. Even in times like this, Eve is just so damn intelligent emotionally and logically. That's why she's one of my favorite characters. I really like emotionally intelligent characters. But they get a call from Invincible Inc., and neither of them really know how to deal with it right now. Until Oliver, the cheeky purple savage, pops up from the couch. He offers to do the job, and it turns out it was Titan who called for the job. Well, I doubt he called directly. He probably had someone who worked for him make the call. I guarantee you, if Mark figured it out beforehand that it was Titan organizing all of this, he would have never sent Oliver to this place after everything that Titan has put Mark through. Almost getting eaten by a dragon and getting a giant hole in your body from Battle Beast is definitely not something you forget. But Titan's ask is pretty simple. Help him beat the absolute crap out of Mr. Liu since he's still weak and recovering from that 45 caliber haircut, and to get his feet off Titan's desk. But Titan wants Invincible, not Oliver, so he's like, nah, no deal, no Invincible, no deal. But after Oliver sees that Titan is trying to protect his family, he lifts Titan's desk with his fingertip and shows him he's more than willing to help and more than capable. Oliver has a really good heart. He's been a big highlight for me this season with how much he's grown. I liked him in season 3 as well, especially with the conflict between him and Mark on the note of their father. But this season, he's not tied to that anymore. He's becoming his own hero with his own values and his own choices. And that is why Debbie let him choose his own costume. On a less upbeat note, Eve heads to Guardians HQ to have Rex try to help her figure out what's up with her powers. It was a pretty good idea of Mark to be like, hey, he fixed Monster Girl's powers, maybe he can fix yours. And according to his scans, everything checks out with her physical health, no apparent irregularities, and he asks her if there's been anything else that seems sort of off. But before Eve can answer, a beeping noise comes out of seemingly nowhere. Oh no, I know what that means. First the Sequids, and now the Flaxans too? Jesus, Mark was right. They really don't get nights off. I'll say this though, I had an ear-to-ear smile as they played the same song from season 1 when the Flaxans first invaded. Only difference between this invasion and the prior invasion is that the Flaxans are taking prisoners now. But that's only the tip of the bullshit today, folks.
This was some bullshit when Invincible did it, and it's even more bullshit now.
Thankfully, the Flaxans should be handled with the Guardians en route, Robot's intellect, and Invincible's aid. Some of the Guardians seem a little unsure of his presence, but Bulletproof is all,
What? You want to tell him to go home?
yeah, like anyone would refuse the aid of the strongest hero on the planet or try to tell a nuclear bomb to just go back to where it came from. I'm sure that'll work out real well. Meanwhile, Oliver soon realizes the situation he's in when Liu turns into that dragon. All of a sudden, things are a lot more serious. I doubt Oliver realizes it, but Titan no doubt brought him as sort of like bait and a distraction to keep Liu busy while he fully killed his body this time. And just like his older brother, Oliver forgets about the tale. But at least he's smart enough to make a call for help. Unfortunately, Mark is occupied at the time, so Eve just tells him to run and get the hell out of there. Speaking of Mark being occupied, let's jump over to crisis number 1. Rudy figures out that the emitter the Flaxans must be using to stay alive in their dimension must be concealed behind the portal. So when he and Monster Girl go through the portal and destroy it, it seems as though the threat has passed and the day is theirs. But if the Flaxans aren't dealt with permanently here and now, the next time they come back, they'll just be unstoppable because they'll have had so much time to advance. Sounds to me like Rudy is leaning into what he said in the showers. So all the Guardians get up and make a bum rush for the portal. Unluckily for them, this one Flaxan guy, crawls his way through the portal as his body ages rapidly and shoots the device, keeping it open before the Guardians even make it through. I bet you anything that one Flaxan commander dude who closed the portal was like a descendant of the leader who got utterly pulverized by Omni-Man in season 1. Bet you anything he's a descendant. Guarantee it, actually. While the Guardians didn't make it through, some of them were already there. Monster Girl and Rex now find themselves trapped in the Flaxan's dimension. But with that crisis over, Mark gets a call about what's going on with Liu and Oliver. Oliver and Titan are getting the absolute shit kicked out of them as Mark arrives in the nick of time. Oliver tells Mark he didn't want to run away because he didn't want to do a bad job for him and Eve. And that is so fucking sweet and adorable, but come on, Oliver, your stomach is practically ripped open. No one would have blamed you for running. Eve even told you to run. Come on, I know you're a good kid, but if you get yourself killed, I guarantee you, your bro ain't gonna be happy. But Oliver says that he's fine and still good to fight, and our brotherly duo finally get a proper team up and kick the living shit out of Liu. They're kicking him so hard that he orders his servant to grab his body so they can retreat. Unfortunately, they do get away, but that's not the worst thing to come out of this battle. The instant that Mark sees Titan, he goes full maniac on him and starts beating the living shit out of him. He screams at Titan to never mess with his family as he beats him senseless. Titan tries to explain through the beatings that he was just trying to protect his family, but I think it just goes right over Mark's head, or it just completely doesn't register, or he doesn't care. And if Oliver wasn't there to stop him, Mark probably would have killed Titan. And later that night, Mark expresses to Eve how, quote, it almost happened again. Eve's powers are on the fritz, and now Rex is gone, so they don't have anyone proper who can investigate it, and Mark almost killed Titan. Man, everything is just going to shit, huh? We thought shit was going to shit in the previous 2 seasons. This is a whole nother level. And not just for the good guys. It's not like they're the only ones in shit right now. You gotta remember, folks, there's only one person around here who steals the show. And unlike his last 2 endeavors, this one really paid off. The encounter with Invincible and Liu made Titan reconsider joining the Order. So he does just that. And guess who also rejoined the Order for their own survival and protection? That's right, my friends, Mr. Liu is back in it too. And once you're in the Order, you do not fuck with other members of the Order. I think Isotope says it best.
Sorry, boss. It just makes sense.
It does just make sense. The family is all back together, and they can get back to the most important thing in life.
The business of making so much money, it's fucking ridiculous!
Man, I wonder if they have any seats left in the Order. Machine Head always ends his episodes with the stupidest, funniest, and most insane over-the-top one-liners. And people still wonder why he's my favorite character. I wonder how many takes they did of that final line. I would love some more behind the scenes about Machine Head. Whew, okay. Let's talk about the actual ending scene now. The episode ends with Mark waking up from a bad dream and Eve is nowhere to be found. But the only other place you would find someone at this hour is the bathroom. Mark asks if everything is okay from the other side of the door after Eve very quickly pulled it shut, and Eve says that everything's fine and she'll come back to bed soon. I don't know if everything being fine is the description I would use, because it's revealed that Eve is pregnant. Mark, my boy, my homie. If there was anything Amber did right, it was making you use protection. Come on, man. Seriously though, that is a cliffhanger if I've ever seen one. Episodes ending with cliffhangers on the note of like, some heroes almost dying, like take, what was it? That one episode in season 2 where the Guardians fought the Lizard League in the nuclear bunker. Like, yeah, that was a very impactful, very crazy cliffhanger. But those are like, yeah, whatever. That's to be expected in shows like this. But something like this This is a whole different can of worms. But that, my friends, was the plot of Invincible Season 4, Episode 3. Holy moly, a lot happened in this episode, and I really struggled to condense it all down. First of all, how the hell did Rudy's sensors not detect Eve's pregnancy? Those are military-grade GDA-built sensors. There is no way they wouldn't have detected that. Is the pregnancy just that recent? I don't know. It's possible that the pregnancy is having an effect on Eve's powers, but we know her powers were at least acting a little funny back at the end of season 3. And do you recall the conversation between Mark and Eve's dad from episode 1? I didn't include this in that video, but Adam questions if Mark can even have kids, and as far as he knows, he can. That was no doubt foreshadowing for the ending of this episode. Just more proof that the writers know mostly what they're doing. Secondly, the parallel between Mark and Titan this episode was bone dead brilliant. Both of them are so committed to protecting their families from harm that they will no longer hesitate to kill anyone who tries to hurt them. And sometimes that means killing other people trying to protect their families, it seems. It's definitely a glimpse and a sign that Mark is barely hanging on to his temper, especially after the whole Sinclair situation. We add all that up, all that trauma and anger and guilt and remorse, Mark is in no position to be a dad. That additional stress will do him zero favors. But then again, something as fantastic and innocent and wonderful and pure as having a child with the love of your life can be an excellent motivator. Perhaps it's exactly what Mark needs to reorient and ground himself again. But who gives a shit about any of that? Machine Head is back. They should really rename him to Quote Machine, if you ask me. That last line of dialogue had me dying of laughter the first time I heard it. The delivery is so fucking perfect.
It's
and you know what else is kind of perfect? First, Machine Head got played and taken down by Titan back in season 1. Then in season 3, he collaborates with Titan to take down Mr. Liu and, you know, I guess protect Titan's family, but Machine Head doesn't really give a shit about that. And after that point, he had more power than he did before. And then this time around in season 4, he gets Titan back for that first betrayal by forcing him to join the Order. That, my friends, is a true statement to Machine Head's intelligence. I doubt he planned it all from the start, but I bet he figured out the rest of it as soon as Titan came to see him in prison in the prior season. Say what you want about his funny voice and funny quotes like ha ha ha, he's funny Machine Head, but he is a genuinely intelligent and scary antagonist for manipulating and puppeteering both Liu and Titan to work for him together. Titan is now forced to be a co-worker of the dragon guy who tried to murder his family, and Liu is now a co-worker of the rock guy who tried to kill him while he was weakened and alone. All while Machine Head sits at the head of the table, smiling and maybe doing a bit of cackling. So even while he's funny haha auto-tune quote machine, he's still a damn smart villain. And that is one of the major reasons I like him so much. Overall, this episode was intense, dramatic, full of reveals and unexpected climaxes. Haha, yes, very funny. I see you there writing that comment. I see you making some kind of joke about Mark's unexpected climax, yada yada yada. I've heard it all before. You're not funny. I definitely put this episode up there as like a high A or even low S tier episode. There was some character growth and change from Robot, which I definitely was not expecting. Well, I wasn't fully expecting it, but I guess he didn't really have much development since the end of season 2 and I guess the middle of season 3. You know, even aside from like, oh, this happened at this point in the comics, this happened at that point in the comics, just from a writing perspective, it all makes sense. The fights and the action were great, and the emotional weight and callbacks of them made them even greater. And that's what it comes down to, right? What is an awesome looking fight if the characters and their stories mean nothing to us? What are they if we feel nothing for them? That's what I've always loved about Invincible, the insane and incredible investment this show makes me feel for these characters. But what do you think? Do you think Amanda and Rex will find a way home after and if they defeat the Flaxans? Do you think Mark will react poorly or positively about his unborn child? I don't know, but I do care, so please leave your responses down in the comments. If you've enjoyed my coverage of Invincible Season 4 so far and are looking forward to more of it and more of my really bad jokes, then be sure to hit the like and sub button. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, if you really like the way I do things around here and you want to show me a little bit of extra support, please consider becoming a channel member. Not only do you get access to a whole bunch of exclusive rewards, but you also directly support me in the process and literally help me keep a roof over my head. So shout out to the members. But that is gonna do it for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and yeah.